Okay, we're back, I guess. Season 2. As always, my name's Ryan. I'm joined by Alex and producer Zach. And yeah, let's talk about the Canucks. So they lost in a shootout yesterday. Thoughts, anyone? I wasn't able to catch the game. I was at a pub that would refuse to show the game and preferred Winnipeg Blue Bombers versus Toronto Argonauts highlights.
Odd pub you're going to? Yeah, really, I'm not panicked long-term yet after an 0-2 start. It's 2 games. We are way too early to be doing anything serious, but definitely some stuff that needs to be cleaned up with the team right now. Some chemistry issues still, I think, which is honestly to be expected with a new roster starting up the season like this. Defense, I think, needs to work on some things. Power play, I think, really needs to step it up. But yeah, definitely not the start to the year I was hoping for. Zach, I don't know if you have anything you want to add there, but yeah.
Yeah, not too much. Just not the hottest of starts, and for a team that, based off last playoff run, really should have been hoping for a lot better, it's not something you want to see, even with the star goalie being down.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to say that first period against Calgary was fantastic. That showed a lot of what they can be, and I'm not particularly worried. I think 2 games out of an 82 game stretch, like these runs are going to happen again and again, more than likely. But as long as their expectations are set and they're aware of them, I think that this is something that is obviously not up to standard, but something that can absolutely be fixed.
Yeah, like it's been 2 games and we've picked up 2 points. It's not the end of the world. What I would say is I'm not worried, but I am definitely frustrated with what I've been seeing. I do totally believe it will be cleaned up fairly shortly, but it's annoying while it's happening to see this.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess we'll talk about Elias Pettersson now, because some players have been really good. I've really liked how Höglander and Ratu have played in the lineup. But I would also like to see more out of Elias Pettersson. And as always, JT Miller is our best player. It appears he's going to be that again this year, just judging by the first 2 games. So would be really nice to see the guy who's being paid $11 million playing like an $11 million player.
Yeah, no, definitely agree. The top 2 centers right now are not playing like top 2 centers. Miller, I think he's coming off an injury, I believe, so I think that'll probably be cleaned up in fairly short order. He didn't really have much of a preseason, so I think he just has some rust to kick off. But Pettersson, especially after what we were seeing in the second half of last year and during the postseason, it's not good to be seeing this from him. Had some rough performances in preseason too. 2 pretty bad games in a row. Like, this is a guy who I believe is in the top 5 highest paid players in the NHL this season. There's no excuses this year. He cannot be playing like this for a long stretch of time. He's got, obviously, again, plenty of time to correct it. But if this is the Elias Pettersson we're going to be getting this year, this is going to be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's 2 games. I'm not too worried about it. I think if this is something that continues, he had a whole off season to rest. Injuries shouldn't be a problem. If this is something that continues into like November, even like the end of this month, I would say that that's a problem. But again, I can't be any harder on him as an individual than the rest of the roster. And I think that 2 games isn't exactly something to freak out and hit the panic button and demand a trade for him, you know?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's always going to be people overreacting and taking it a little too far. I think this is, again, a case where to say you're, like, worried or something long-term would, I think, be an overstretch, but it is very frustrating to see an $11 million man not looking like an $11 million man out there. Again, after a full offseason to recover from whatever injuries he may have had, it just... I don't know what's going to solve the problem, but something's got to change here.
Yeah, and part of me wonders if he still feels like the players around him aren't good enough, which I would firmly disagree with. But I would also just like to see, the rest of the offense producing more. Like, it felt like after the first period, it felt like our offense just completely stopped. And I think if the guys around him are feeding him the puck, then that should be an obvious sign that he should be the one who takes a shot. One thing that I noticed from him late in that Calgary game was he had one opportunity where he was like pretty square to the goalie, and he opted to pass instead. And it's just like you've seen it since his rookie season that's a shot that he scores.
Yeah.
So if he's being hesitant, then I wonder if it's also just like a confidence thing.
Yeah, like that killer instinct he had at one point does not seem to be there right now. Could absolutely be a confidence thing. I'm not sure what's going on, but yeah, it's bothering me a little bit right now just to see this from him. I think maybe some more chemistry with DeBrusk and Sprong or whoever end up being his wingers will help in time too, just because, these are guys he hasn't played with before. He needs to learn a little bit more about how to play with them. But yeah, this is, it's annoying to see.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I would also like to talk about is how good Sprong has been since bringing him in. For the money that he's on, I think he's been a very, very good player, and I really do hope that having him in the forward core can help benefit the guys around him.
He's had some really good moments. He has had some iffy ones. I think he was more or less directly responsible for one of the Flyers' goals last night, which you didn't catch the game, as you said. You may not notice that. This is a player who, again, you're paying him $900,000, so you're not going to be getting anything perfect. I do think I have liked more of what I've seen than what I have disliked, though. Obviously, that goal was great. Having that scoring threat on the second power play unit is great. Giving Pettersson a guy with that good of a shot, I think long-term is going to have some benefit. And he's actually looking like he's into it in puck battles and forechecking right now. That's never been a strong suit of his, so he's never going to be perfect there, but the effort is starting to come in a little bit more. So I think this is going to be a signing that I think we will look at as a good one in very short time.
Is there anything else, Alex?
Just one more guy I want to shout out is... Oh, excuse me, sorry. Jake DeBrusk, I think, has had some ups and downs in his first couple games, but I think overall I am liking what I'm seeing from him more than I'm disliking it. Again, this comes back to, I think, some chemistry needs to be developed between him and his new line mates. He's with a new team. So I think this is a signing who I'm also still optimistic about, despite the fact that we haven't gotten anything too crazy out of the gate. But also I just want to shout out, you briefly touched on this earlier, the young guys, Ratu and Höglander, have looked really strong so far this season.
Yeah. I've really liked them, and I'm optimistic that both of them eventually will be able to get like third, second line, like middle 6 minutes consistently, and not have to be the kinds of guys who are like in and out of the press box. I do think that Höglander is one of our most underrated and talented forwards, and I think that he could be a core piece if forward depth proves to be a strength. I believe that he's a huge piece of that.
Yeah. I do wonder if Ratu does end up getting sent down when Dakota Joshua is back, just because he's a guy who you don't have to put on waivers to send down, unlike some other players. But I think he's definitely got a future here if he can keep playing like this. A little more time in Abbotsford is obviously fine for a player his age too, so I'm not too worried about that if that's what has to happen. But yeah, I like seeing that. And earlier in the preseason, I liked seeing play from guys like Lekaramaki, like Arshdeep Bain, to like Max Sasson, who are probably going to be among the highest names on the depth chart if more injuries strike we need to call up forward. So it's nice to have the support coming from young guys rather than maybe it being someone like a Sheldon Dries, who's your first name to call up, where it's, nothing against Sheldon Dries. It's just he's not going to be much more than a fourth liner ever. These are guys who maybe have some higher ceiling. So yeah.
Yeah. No, it's nice having that mix of potential and also just like available, ready skill and ability, like in the AHL waiting.
Yeah, no, nice to see.
Yeah,
and I do wonder, just speaking of guys we haven't, sorry to cut you off, guys we have in the AHL. So the bottom end of the defense has looked a little rough throughout the first couple games. We're having a hard time getting the puck out of our zone. I wonder if at some point maybe Eric Brandstrom, who we picked up in the Tucker Pullman trade, could come into play here. He's a guy who I'm pretty excited about the potential of. He's 25, so he's probably not going to be too much more than what he's been at the NHL before, but he can move the puck out better than any guy we have at the bottom of our defense right now. So I'm hoping to see him get some minutes soon in the NHL.
Yeah, I'm hoping obviously Tyler Myers' injury now, it's day to day. He'll be back in probably a week or two, but I'm hoping that during that time he'll be able to get some reps. Yeah. Because I do really like him, and he played 72 games last year, I believe.
I believe so.
Yeah, and he's a very, very competent puck mover. I trust him to quarterback a power play too over a lot of our other options.
Yeah.
And I think that having just you can never have enough skill in your defensive core. Just, with and he's not like a all offense guy. Like, he's a very strong two-way defenseman. So I think he's a guy that if the Canucks are wanting to sort of change up their defense, maybe after these 2 games, he's a name that gets put into the discussion of guys who get more minutes at the NHL level.
Yeah, because I think throughout the first 2 games, Derek Forbort has not been especially impressive. Desharnais had a pretty rough game in the first one. Noah Juleson last night, I don't think he was bad, but he's Noah Juleson. He's not really much more than a bottom pair player, really. Sorry, Mayan.
Yeah.
But I think Brandstrom's a guy who can come in and, if nothing else, it's a different skill set than what you have in any of those guys. He's, like you said, he's a very good puck mover. Those guys are all far more stay-at-home D-men. So I think just having that little change on the bottom pair could do a lot for just getting some relief on the goaltenders, especially.
Yeah. One final thing I want to talk about is the Lankinen Silovs dilemma. I think in the first 2 games, Lankinen had a much, much better game than Silovs. I think Silovs had a -4 goals saved above expected against Calgary, meaning if you have a replacement level goalie in, then that's a 5-1 win. So it's concerning to see that for sure. But again, he's also much younger, and he has proved himself in last season's playoff run that he can be a fantastic goalie. So I wonder going forward until Demko's back what the split will be between the 2 of them.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Zach and I were kind of talking about this the other day and what we think. I of the belief that I think some people are buying into Silovs a little bit more than they should because of that playoff run in a certain way. It's not that I doubt him long term, it's that was one stretch where he was playing quite well over a small sample size. So I think people who are I've even heard people saying we should trade Demko because of Silovs. That's a very small amount of people,
absurd.
and it's people overreacting, but it's at least been said by some. I'm firmly of the belief that right now Kevin Lankinen should be our starting goaltender. I think he's got more NHL experience, and I feel like he's kind of the safer option. Silovs obviously has the higher upside of the 2. I think he does have the potential to be a starting goalie in the NHL one day. But right now, what you have in Kevin Lankinen a little more, and you really saw what he can do last night. And I think once Demko is back, Silovs probably needs a little bit more time in the AHL to just develop a few areas of his game. I think he really struggled with point shots, especially, and I think teams are starting to recognize that if you just get enough of those on him, he's going to let a few in. So once you can get that worked out, bring him back up. But long term, throughout the season, I believe that Kevin Lankinen should be the one backing up Thatcher Demko, and right now should be the starting goalie for the Canucks.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was the reason they brought him in on a 1-year deal, was because right now that's what we need, is we need a backup and a starter until Demko's back. And while Silovs was good in that run, he's still at the age where AHL development is not only viable, but I think should be more encouraged, just as long as he's getting reps against professional players, working out the kinks in his game. That will suit him much better for his next stint in the NHL after Demko returns.
And I don't want to take away from the magic of that Silovs run, because his play against Nashville was absolutely incredible. He was thrown into a really bad situation and did incredibly. That series against the Oilers, he did have some moments where he got a little bit exposed, and I feel like with Thatcher Demko, we probably end up playing the Dallas Stars in the Western Conference Finals. Now, saying a guy is not as good as Thatcher Demko is not an insult. Thatcher Demko, when he's healthy, I think is a top 5 goaltender in the NHL. But I think it just shows that you can't put too much expectations on this kid based on what he did against Nashville. Because I don't think that's fair to him more than anything. I think he needs to be given time to prove himself a little bit more. And that probably comes in the form of starting in Abbotsford for a while rather than being on the NHL. In the NHL.
Yeah, I can agree with that for sure.
Yeah. Zach, anything you want to add here?
I have a little bit of a thought exercise I almost want to do. I wonder if...
Yeah.
Do you two think when the Nashville series, when he jumped in to the end of the Oilers series, do you think a lot of his weaknesses got papered over by the rest of the team shelling up a bit more? They had less faith in the goalie behind them, so they were less creative going forwards. Because it felt like in some of the games the offense was just totally stale, in that we didn't trust the back wall so we didn't want to leave it unsupervised.
I could see it, honestly, because there were some games where we were getting hemmed in a lot, and I think we were trying to shelter Silovs, like you were just saying. So I do think that is definitely possible. I'm not going to say it definitively is or is not what happened, but I do think it definitely could have been a factor in inflating his numbers a little bit. Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, I also would say that. I think I remember watching Game 6 being up 3-2 against Edmonton and being physically disgusted with how they were playing, because it just felt like everything was going wrong. It felt like they were too hesitant when they were on offense, and it just ended up with, even when that happened, it was like they could get offensive zone pressure and they would fumble something because they're too nervous on offense, and lose the puck and cause an odd man rush, which led to a goal. And I think that happened multiple times in that game, and I was just I was stunned, because it was nothing like the Canucks had been playing the entire series. And it basically gave me a sense of impending doom going into Game 7, where it was with how we played last game, I have lost complete faith in them, and that sucks. But I mean, I think that's what happened.
You could really see this last season where the team plays different as a whole when they know they have Demko behind them. I think in games where we had DeSmith in net, or we had Silovs in net in the postseason and the regular season, they shelled up a little more. They didn't look as creative. They didn't look as comfortable out there. Whereas when you have Demko in net, this guy, he was a Vezina candidate for a reason. He can make those incredible saves. He can bail you out if you need. So the guys feel less afraid to take a risk. When they have to shelter the goalie a little bit, they look stale. So I do think that trying to shelter whether it's trying to shelter him or just being nervous, the fact that it was a goalie who they're less confident in, I think did definitely lead to them being a little more protective of.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that's all we really have to say, other than next game, Tampa Bay. Thoughts, expectations? Will the Tampa Bay Lightning be playing?
Oh, I hadn't thought about that. That's actually an interesting question now.
Yeah.
Thoughts are with the people in Florida right now. That's just a horrible situation. But, oh man, I had not thought about that until right now. Yeah.
Yeah, we might not even have a game Tuesday.
Yeah. Oh man.
I mean, hopefully we do.
It might
not end up being at Emily Arena, but hopefully.
Shall we move on to other sports?
Yes, I think we shall.
Okay. Do we unfortunately have to talk about the Vancouver Whitecaps?
I think we do.
Oh, that's a shame. I was having a good day.
Yeah, me too.
So, I don't really know what's gotten into the Whitecaps over the last couple of weeks, but man, this team has gotten bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't understand. I think it's just everything, when the games matter, everything just fails with them.
Yeah, so we've dropped points or lost games at home multiple times in a row now. I think at home, this team just looks rough lately. I don't know how this team manages to be better on the road than they do at home. That's honestly almost impressive, but it's a mess right now. They've gone from, I believe, top 4 in the West to potentially in a spot where they'll be having to play a play-in game to actually make the real playoffs. 2 games left in the season. At time of recording, we are the day before they play LAFC in their final home match, and then they have one where they're going to Salt Lake City to take on RSL. Personally, I feel like we're going to end up with a play-in game, which we will probably lose given our current form, but oh man, this is getting rough.
It's bad. It's really bad.
Yeah.
I do agree with you. I think we're going to end up losing the last 2 games, finishing 9th, and then probably losing the away from home play-in. Not to sound like a pessimist at all, or what's the term I'm looking for? Someone who makes the worst case scenario out of everything. But I do genuinely believe that that's where they're headed, because there's no reason to believe otherwise. I haven't seen anything. There were no flashes of brilliance in any of their last games, even against teams that they should be beating at home. It could be a bit of commentator jinx. I remember watching the game against Portland on TSN, and them talking about how BC Place had been a fortress.
Oh no.
But yeah, it's bad. That's all I can really say, is it's really bad.
Yeah, this is not a team that's inspiring confidence going into the postseason. I'm wondering if we're going to see a different manager at the helm next season at this rate, because just this is getting messy. Or even in a game that technically would be looked on as a positive, the Canadian Championship Final, which they won over TFC, that was... I mean, they won, and I'm happy that they won, but they did not deserve to win that final. Like, they got... Isaac Boehmer really bailed the team out that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's, I don't know, potentially some rumors that Cubas might not be back next season. I don't know if there's any validity to these, of course. I've just been seeing stuff online. But, oh god, if you lose him, like, he's not easy to replace, and I don't know what to expect if he's gone.
We cannot replace him.
We cannot.
No, I think he's getting... I think there probably would be some weight to those rumors. He is a fantastic player. It wouldn't surprise me if a bigger team wanted to pick him up, whether that's in Europe or South America.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if there was some weight in that. And if that happens, then I guess it changes. You kind of have to change like the way your team works because he's such a good pivot player.
Yeah.
And it's just, how do you operate without that?
Yeah, like, I don't know. Like you said, paraphrasing Pep Guardiola, we cannot replace him. Like, he's just... He's like having two players in that midfield sometimes. He's just so good with everything he does that I don't know. Frankly, I think he deserves a move to a bigger team if somebody comes knocking. I would not blame him at one bit for leaving at this point. But yeah, this is getting messy.
I agree with that.
Shout out to our friends at Vancouver Albion, too. We are now jersey sponsors for their friendly match that we slightly lost, and I'm going to gloss over. Yeah, anything else we want to say about the Whitecaps or soccer, or should we move on to baseball?
I think we should move on for the sake of our mental health.
Talk about the Mets, baby, the Mets. Love the Mets.
All right, so again, at time of recording, we're recording this on Saturday afternoon. AL and NLCS series are both decided. NLCS will be between the Dodgers and the Mets. AL between my New York Yankees and the Cleveland Guardians, not the Detroit Tigers. They lost. Excuse me. Let's start with the NL. What do you guys... Anything you guys hope for, expect, want to mention?
No, nothing really. I mean, I didn't really watch baseball this year because I am a Jays fan during the year. I just kind of picked the Mets on a whim. Just no reason at all other than the memes I see on the internet with like Grimace. And also just out of spite for Alex. Being a Yankees fan and all. So honestly, like I don't want to watch the Dodgers succeed. That's all.
Yeah, this is a situation where, as a Yankees fan, this is kind of the nightmare in LCS. These are two teams who you really don't want to see succeed. Like, the Dodgers right now... This is going to sound rich coming from a Yankees fan, but my god, this team is annoying to see coverage. Like, ESPN's giving us updates on when Shohei Ohtani sneezes at this point, so I really don't want to see more of that, especially in a World Series situation. But, you know... You also never want to see the little brother team in your city win, so I don't want to watch the Mets win either. Either way, if the Yankees were to face one of these teams, I think it would make for a really exciting World Series matchup. But yeah, just from that perspective, I don't like it. And then we'll move on to the ALCS, where I feel like I don't need to ask this question, but I will. Ryan, what do you want to see?
Like, what do you mean? Like in the Champions Series, in the Championship Series, in the ALCS?
Yes.
I actually don't know because I despise both these teams. I mean,
what
I guess
beef do you
the
have
Guardians.
with Cleveland?
I don't know. I just have never liked the city of Cleveland. I don't know what else to say about that. But I do think, yeah, you know what? Never mind. Guardians in 4. Actually, but then there's also the prospects of a Subway Series, and in that situation, like, as much as I am like a Mets bandwagon and a full-time Yankees hater, that would be pretty iconic and classic.
Yeah.
But yeah,
travel schedule would be rough for the teams in that one.
Indeed.
Yeah, like, I mean, I'm a Yankees fan, so I'm biased here. I want to see the Yankees win it, but they've got a good team. This will be a good series to watch. I think both will be entertaining baseball. I don't know how far Grimace can take the Mets and if he's going to get him past the Dodgers here, so I do think we're going to end up with... I think we're going to end up with the TV executive's dream in a Yankee-Dodgers World Series, but this is going to be good to come down to the end. I also would like to mention earlier, I wish to apologize to the fans of the Detroit Tigers. I believe it is my fault that you lost today. Because when the game was 1-0, I sent Zach a text to say how good Tariq Skubal is. Within 5 minutes, the game was 5-1, and he had given up a grand slam. So I would like to offer a big apology to the city of Detroit, to the Tigers, and to Tariq Skubal, especially for destroying your season.
Nice one, Alex.
Thank you.
Here I was hoping for a Mets-Tigers World Series.
And now I have to watch 2 baseball series with 4 teams who I don't really want to see any of them succeed, to be honest. Like,
Do you even watch baseball?
The Dodgers and the let me finish, Ryan. The Dodgers and the the Dodgers and the Yankees. Cheering for the Dodgers and the Yankees is like cheering for the Death Star. You know, the Mets. You never want to see the Mets succeed because they're always so creative in how they fail. And, I don't know how anyone can trust Cleveland to do anything right when their own river was set on fire in the 60s. I don't know how you can look someone dead in the face and tell them that you have to support a team who set a river on fire. A river!
Well said.
We are so back.
Okay.
It's good to be back, ladies and gentlemen.
The new season, and I am excited.
It is so good to be back.
We haven't even played the Oilers yet, and he's already ranting.
I mean, how long until he's allowed to make fun of Tampa? Too soon?
I'd say too soon.
Maybe next episode. We'll see.
We'll see if we make it to a next one at this rate.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, I have nothing else to talk about. So.
No, I think Zach really said it all there.
Yeah. Should we cut the cord?
Shall we?
I think we shall. Yeah, thanks. And also sorry for listening.
Yeah. Zach, any closing remarks?
Hi, Alex's mom. Good to see you at the end of the episode.
Thank you for letting us come back. I don't know why anyone let us near a microphone again, but I'm so happy for the opportunity. Goodbye, everybody.